accident.
Yeah.
Probably the same story.
My daughter was staying on Ron. She was in the corporate office down there.
Is that Cocoa Beach?
Yeah, Cocoa Beach. Yeah.
Yeah, they're well Patrick, well massive.
Yeah. Nice place in winter. It's too hot, so.
And hurricane season's not a real choice.
Yeah.
Especially. If you got a parrot, you might want to sell it.
I'll take this best. Oh,
We ready?
you're gonna make it official?
I think we're gonna make it official. Good evening, everybody. Still. Good? Oh, good luck.
You want it up?
I don't know. I thought it was good.
That's your business.
Get you a picture in there.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out and braving COVID tonight. I'm John. I'm the chapter president here for the Spokane WPA. Appreciate seeing all you guys. Just a couple of quick announcements before we introduce our speaker this evening. Just so you all know, we are broadcasting this event live online on YouTube. So for everybody out there in computer land, hello, thank you for joining us. And for those of you looking for Wings credit, make sure you look at the comments section of this video. There's an email that we need to get at the chapter email address. Just include your name, your email address, and shoot us an email. And that will allow us to give you, our audience at home, Wings credit for participating tonight. So the rest of you who are here for Wings credit, make sure you sign up. Roger, you still have the clipboard?
Everybody signed up.
Everybody signed up, 100%. Very nice. Well done. Okay, a couple things we wanted to be sure to mention. We are going to be doing election of new chapter board members coming up shortly. If you're interested, we do have a couple vacancies on our board. We have a lot of fun. If you're interested, please talk to myself or one of the other board members. John Miller is a board member, Tom Morris, CJ, and Roger. And we are planning on doing our elections, I think that's next month or November. Okay. So keep coming to the meetings, especially in November, if you want to vote. This election will be nothing near as contentious as some of the other elections that you're probably following. So, but if you have any questions about the election process or being a board member, we'd love to talk to you. We do have a lot of fun, and we are the kind of people interested in making a difference in aviation safety, aviation education, and making sure that our state and local politicians are considering aviation needs as they're making their decisions. So if that's the kind of thing that interests you, please talk to one of us. We are planning on doing another meeting like this one in October, as long as COVID cooperates and we can meet here at Darcy's. They've been a partner with us for years. We appreciate them, so we want to keeping them in business. Order lots of food tonight, okay? And because they've been very hospitable to us and partnered with us. So drink up, eat up, and please plan on keeping on coming as long as COVID allows us to do so. If COVID doesn't allow you to do so, or you're not able to make it, just know, I think from here on out, we're planning on doing the YouTube Live all the time. And we are archiving these presentations as well. So they are available for you to go review later on if you want to watch them again. So that's just some of the silver lining in what's going on is this technological development that we're investing in. So speaking of investing, we have a camera that the chapter just purchased. We are purchasing our presenter's meal tonight. These are the kind of things that our chapter pays for. If you are interested in investing with us in what we're doing, become a member of WPA, and renewals are about to come out again, so keep an eye in your mailbox and your email for renewals. And if it's in your heart to donate a little bit more, we got the coffee can up here. I'll put it over here, so on your way out, it's real convenient. Actually, I'll just pass it around and make you all feel guilty. So, okay? But that's where the money's going to. I can guarantee no board member is getting rich on this. We got multiple people to vouch for that. Speaking of board members, last thing I'm going to talk about. I got to publicly thank several of our board members. Mr. John Deek, who maybe is tuning in or not, I'm not sure. He's a Horizon pilot on the board. He's done a lot to get the technology set up here. John Miller has arranged for the speaker. He's also done a couple things with a state board meeting that we recently hosted. I just want to publicly acknowledge John. Thank you for your hard work. Roger, all of his hard work as the East Side VP, am I getting your title right, for the state. And CJ is our president-elect at this point. He's been doing lots of hard work. And so just a couple board members to call out. And of course, Mr. Lucky, who isn't with us tonight. You all know Dave Lucky, and he just does a lot of things, and Tom as well. So again, thank you. Roger, I'm going to have you come up, and I think you've got maybe one more announcement, and we'll introduce your speaker. Again, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, John. One announcement. A few weeks ago, there was a presentation done by the FAA safety team on all the aviation activities at Coeur d'Alene. Similar presentation is coming up here on Tuesday, September 22nd. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. It's a virtual Zoom meeting. It's going to be all the way about Spokane International and Phelps Field, and be very good information for all the pilots who fly those areas. Information on that can be either found at the FAA website, faasafety.com, or the Washington Pilot Association, WPA also the Facebook page for WPA Spokane Facebook, and they'll cover that. So that's the first announcement I have, and the next one is I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Before I do that though, by show of hands, how many people in here are graduates of the Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape School, or SEER? Okay, 3 of us, so that's the 3 I knew about. Every aircrew person in all the services that become designated association, WPA Spokane, they attend roughly about a 3-week school, survival, evasion, and resistance, escape. So that's the first announcement I have. The next one is I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Before I do that though, by show of hands, how many people was 20 years graduates of the Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape School, or SEER? Survival area. 3 of us, so that's the 3 I know about. The SEER School, every aircrew person in all the services, and without further ado, all that become designated association, WPA Spokane, they attend roughly about a 3-week school, survival, evasion, and resistance, escape. So that's the first
Wraps up my back.
Next one is I'd like to introduce our guest speaker.
Anyway, I'm civilian, GS type, which is basically military with a lot more flexibility and better pay. So did my 22 years teaching survival as a young guy working personnel recovery, and didn't feel like growing up, so I just converted over, got out of the military, retired, and not the Jackson, working in the association. When I was asked to come over, they said 45 minutes. So I said, I'm like, course, but we have 15 different courses. Our basic one that people start with is 19 days long. So you can imagine my head trained pilots, and you guys are already out flying in 45 minutes. So I took a little different twist. I'm sure some of you have been around a while. You've seen a bunch of these to fill your FAA block, but I'm going to take a little twist. But I did throw in, I'm here as part of the government, so I got to give the survival school its plug. I got about a 4.5-minute video. It's kind of neat, shows you what's going on. Like Roger said, every Air Force aircrew member is trained in survival in a lot of different courses. That all happens out here at Fairchild. So anybody you see flying any wartime mission who's been up at Fairchild received all their survival training. They're usually up there about a month and a half. So they get the 19-day, they get water, they get a dunker, they get parachuting, ejection seat, the whole giddy up. So cool video, but nothing really to do with teaching you survival, but it gives you a good glimpse of your fellow aviators and what they're doing in the military. Yes.
Yeah, before you get started, I just want to mention, because I know he won't, that his training has saved 5 people that have been rescued because of the efforts that Chris has done. So I just want to,
And not to brag on me, those were the guys that I had trained, went in, reintegrated, repatriated, and brought back. I don't want to steal from the career field. The career field's got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of folks that have used it in the past. So anyway, without ado, intro into our current schoolhouse and what's going on out there.
Whether they are serving on the front lines or bases
Needs an
overseas,
updated president, got it.
or
It's in the
here in the
notes.
home front, the men and women of the United States Air Force bring honor to the uniform, and they are bringing us victory in the war on terror.
We do have our own pool and dunker. If any of you guys are helo guys or you're curious, and we have some of the best dunker training in the Department of Defense. They're hard to find, dunkers.
Falling under the 58th Special Operations Wing, the 336 Training Group, located at Fairchild Air Force Base, is home to the U.S. Air Force's Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape, or SEER School. The 336 Training Group consists of 3 squadrons with geographically separated detachments at Lackland Air Force Base, Texas, and Eielson Air Force Base, Alaska. The 36th Rescue Squadron falls directly under the 58th Sound, is also established at Fairchild Air Force Base, directly supporting the SEER mission. Each squadron plays a vital part in developing the best equipped airmen in the United States Air Force. The 36th Training Group is responsible for 15 formal courses, training over 18,000 students annually. The 22nd Training Squadron is tasked with upgrading SEER specialists to a 5-level, mission-ready status and instructing SV-80A SEER training. This 19-day foundational course teaches those deemed to be high risk of isolation personnel and instructs all aspects of SEER and occurs 50 weeks out of each year. This course consists of physical and psychological stresses of survival, hands-on training in post-ejection procedures and parachute landing falls, survival medicine, and recovery device training and equipment procedures. In a remote field training environment, students receive additional training which includes shelter and firecraft, food procurement and preparation, day and night land navigation techniques, evasion travel and camouflage techniques, ground-to-air signaling and aircraft vectoring procedures. Finally, students are returned to Fairchild and receive an in-depth code of conduct and conduct after capture training.
That's the last half, the ROD, resistance and escape.
The 66th Training Squadron is the Air Force's sole source of training, developing and certifying new SEER specialists. The SEER Specialist Training Course is a 5.5-month program designed to train candidates how to instruct air crew members to survive in a broad variety of training environments. These candidates are trained while entrenched in multiple biomes, which include temperate, desert, coastal, open ocean, tropics, rough land, Arctic, and evasion. The 66 TRS also manages 3 water survival courses, which trains air crew members on techniques in signaling rescued aircraft, hazardous aquatic life, food and water procurement, medical aspects of water survival, and life raft procedures. The 336th Training Support Squadron provides superior resources and support to the SEER School by way of medical and psychological care, vehicle maintenance and repair, supply field equipment, syllabus and courseware development and enhancement, roads and facilities operations and maintenance, and administrative services. Additionally, they single-handedly provide network support capabilities, aircraft flight equipment, and medical support for search and rescue missions.
So if they run you off the road,
The 36th Rescue Squadron supports the 336 Training Group in the execution of all AETC syllabi and provides evacuation of injured DoD personnel from remote training areas. Support operations include live rescue hoist training, paradrop demonstrations, and combat rescue procedures training. The 36th RQS is on a 24-hour standby, 6 days a week, 50 weeks a year to provide medical evacuation coverage for students and instructors. The 36th RQS also supports the National Search and Rescue Plan by conducting search and rescue and medical evacuation missions in the Pacific Northwest, covering a 4-state region. The 36th RQS is proud to uphold the motto of rescue personnel worldwide, that others may live.
there's your Hueys. Got a Huey driver.
Return to combat, the motto of the SEER School.
Whether
Okay, anyway, I could go on and on about our training, just don't have time for it, but it gives you an idea of what we do out there. But we do train every Air Force aviator. Their mission is to fly on board an aircraft, not just the pilots, the navs. You know, difference, never mind. No jokes, we only got 45 minutes, I'll be up here all night. Anyway, You see, we fall under Special Operations Command. That changed. We used to be just normal Gomers, and we used to be called instructors. There are no longer instructors. That was our sole mission in the military out here for many years, teaching survival. Well, we changed now. They're no longer SEER specialists or instructors. They're specialists because about 15 years ago, and I was involved in some of it. We picked up a combat mission. Those of you that were in Vietnam, we were talking, or other conflicts, you know that each service kind of took care of their own and developed their own PR. That changed. For the Department of Defense, they created Guardian Angel. That is just one big system that in the operational area, we call like CENTCOM for Iraq and Afghanistan. This group of individuals, one SEER specialist, a combat recovery officer, and pararescue, we go in and we control rescue for the whole thing. Doesn't mean we do every bit of it, but we keep all the information on all the pilots if they go down. We collect it. We look at assets. We look at the terrain. We provide refresher. But if they report, which is send that beacon off, or however we get that report, then we are in charge of, we're basically 911 in the war zone. That guy sends off a beacon, something happens, that aircrew member's isolated. We also do it for all the services. We're the lead for all of them, so it changes survival a lot. The only reason I bring that up, one, so you know what they're doing out there, the young SEER guys deploy in a very heavy schedule, so buy them a beer. It's my right. Anyway, when I looked at the short time limit, one of our other missions, other than if somebody goes down and needs our help, is when there is downtime, we get on with gentlemen, I'm sorry, I forgot your first name. Mike, who has a helicopter, and we have some time, we'll hop all over those and go into units that don't get full SEER training. Some of them don't get any SEER training at all. We'll just pop in and do what we call threat assessment and mitigation. So I looked, I'm like, these guys are older, gals, guys, whoever's flying, all y'all are older, you've been doing this a while. So what I'm gonna look at is just give you a quick threat assessment. So you know what I think is a threat. I have been doing it a little while, 36 years now, teaching people how to eat bugs. I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but a lot of stuff will stick after 36 years. So I'll just give you a quick threat assessment of your operational area, which I'm just gonna consider Washington. Okay, it's a good tool to walk you through. And if you travel outside that, because of the nature of Washington, we'll cover it. Okay, if I were to come into your area, say, okay, as aviators, here's your quick threat assessment. I got a couple minutes to be here as a 36-year survival specialist. Let me give you what I got. First thing I'm going to do is always evaluate the threat that you're in. And in a survival situation, majority of that is your environment. I mean, we talk bad guys in combat and all that, but you're not facing that here. So your majority of threat is a survivor, other than the aircraft incident and getting clear of that. I'm addressing once you guys do the magic that you do as pilots, and I've been in those planes, and thank you for all your practice on emergency procedures. But once you hit the ground, the environmental is the biggest thing we have to look at. So I take a look, I roll in here and say, oh, you guys are in Washington. I pull that up, I run through all our databases and all other things. We're checking the old National Geographic, but bottom line, you are in a unique threat environment for a survival situation. Anybody know why? What makes Washington unique? Not the soul, but with your environment, you have environmental biomes, right? That all the scientists have said for a desert, it has to be less than 3 inches a year. Tropics has to be more rain. You have every major biome on the globe in your operational area. For a survival guy, that's like, dang, fiddle things, you know, because our main threat is the environment. And if you're flying a 6-hour trip and you can cover every environment in the globe, that's some scary stuff. So my threat assessment to you, you don't see a whole lot of areas like this. Even over Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, you got desert. Guess what? Pack a lot of water. Good to go, Army troops, you know. Or if you get up in the mountains, if you're flying in this region, you need to pack water and cold weather good. And it's pretty much that simple. But for you guys with all that biome, it changes. If you just do a flight, Phelps Field over to as far west as you can go on the coast. You guys, I'm sure, know the airports over there. We start out in a temperate environment. Cold in the winter, 4 seasons, like we got here. Basically, cold and snowy during the winter, hot and dry during the summer. We start in a temperate environment. And you can leave here, it's like 70 degrees, nice out at Phelps Field. You fly over, what's the next environment we hit? Desert. And it's no kidding desert. It's less than 10 inches of precipitation. All those videos you saw where we take our new guys and train them, that's all done in Washington. One of the reasons General LeMay moved our school here, because we got every biome. So we don't have to leave the state, fly them up to Alaska, which we do for specialized. But we hit desert. Yep, it's hot. And there's rattlesnakes. And if you ever been to George, go down to Columbia, there's sand dunes and rattlesnakes. And you get further down in Umatilla, there's a lot of desert area there. Okay? Then we hit the Cascades, back into temperate, but what else do we have in the Cascades? What's that? And on top of those mountains, what do we got? Arctic. A lot of time of the year. I mean, starting some down at tree line, but you get up above tree line, that's bare line Arctic. And continuing up, and you could leave here, it's been a while since I've done this, but I think like a May, April trip, you can encounter all these. And there can still be ice cap up on some of these mountains where you go down above tree line, and it's bare and Arctic. Then you drop back down, you got all the water environments. You got open water, you got the ocean, whole different giddy up. But before we hit the ocean, what do we hit?
Rainforest.
Rainforest, Forks, Washington area. It is a tropics area by definition about the amount of rainfall. So you see the problem when I look at your operational area? I'm like, as a survival guy, I'm looking at biomes. And if they're flying in Utah, Arizona, Nevada, if that was this group, what would I tell you? It's pretty easy. As far as your prep, pack a lot of water and something to get yourself some shade. Everything else is gravy. But I go up to Alaska, we work with the guys up there, totally changes it. I say to them, hey, there's plenty of water and mosquitoes to eat, so don't eat mosquitoes. It's just if you ever been up there without bug juice, insect repellent, it's terrible. Anyway, so you've got no kidding rainforest over there. And then you've got the open ocean. So all I want you to think about is when you're preparing, your job is so much harder than a lot of other given areas. Now, I'm not going to tell you what to prepare for. I just want to show you what's out there and what you need to be thinking about. If your flight plan doesn't do that, fine. Then prep for just the one environmental threat that you got. But I do want to make you aware, if I was going into a war zone, because not just for the survivability site, we got to look at the rescue site. There's a lot of difficult places to do rescues around here, and a lot of the environmental factors play into it. You saw our Huey guys, they just hit 500 rescues in this area. There's a fair chance that if you went down in this area, to the 4-state area, that the RQS, if somebody doesn't beat them, is going to be there. And they put a SEER specialist and a combat recovery, and they got their medics. I don't know where I was going other than I got a lot of respect for them. They provide all their air support. Oh, 500. That's good. But there's difficult spots here, so it affects your recovery as well. If you think the long-term survival is gone, I agree with you. I don't think you're going to be out there that 30 days, 60 days, like we tell stories from way back when. You guys are smarter than me on technology, and the chances of you being out there for very long are slim. But the chance of you being out there long enough to die, I don't know. You run out there in your flight suit when it's 10 degrees below zero, or you just fell in the lake, or you're out without water and nobody's finding you because that sandstorm we just drove through, we were on that when we got stopped on I-90, that pile up. Oh, terrible. They're not flying out there in that. You guys know. You're going to know, be able to look up. So, some difficulties. You have a high threat environment, no doubt. When we look at each one of those, we talked what? Desert, Arctic, tropics, all the different biomes. When we look to prepare ourselves, what do I need knowledge-wise, skill-wise, and what do I need equipment-wise to do each one of these? Unfortunately, that whole list on the top, you've got to look at, depending on your mission profile. Is that tracking with everybody? So what are we looking at in there? Climate, terrain, and life forms. I'm not going to talk down to you. Climate's obvious. Temperature, wind, precipitation. That morning when we're sitting here at Phelps Field and it's 70, we go down up in the Cascades, you see pretty huge temperature change. And from summer close to now, we're up in the snow and it's freezing cold. I didn't have anything for rain. Now I'm over in a tropical environment. So you see the difficulties in trying to prepare. But these are the three things you have to look for. The life forms, do they change in Washington? I usually go into the desert and I say, here's a picture of your spider, here's the 3 snakes, and here's all the different tribes in Afghanistan. Point out the good guys, the bad guys. But really that's it for the dangerous critters. Out here you got everything. You got the rattlesnakes and all the nasty little insects and spiders down along from George on south of there, that you deal with like a desert. You've got large bear, coyote, wolf when you're up in the it just changes a lot. So all I'm telling you is each one of these factors changes in each one of those environments. So when you're preparing for a mission, get yours, select it, and be aware that, hey, a small mission profile, I do a run over to the coast, I didn't even think about above tree line, or I didn't think about the no water in George. Does that make sense? Okay, 6 basic needs, and that's considering these environments and each one of them that we have to deal with. There are 6 basic needs. We teach 9 to our military members because we include combat and evasion and hiding from the bad guys and all. 6 things. When you're planning your mission and looking at building a survival kit, which we'll go into a little bit, I'm looking at making a plan, seeing what kind of training I might need, and building a survival kit. 6 basic items that everybody down there in the ground needs. Personal protection, food or sustenance, your physical health. You may need to travel, you may not. Signal, comm, and recovery. But you hit the ground as a survivor, those are your 6 things you should be looking at. You guys have all been around a little while. Okay, all of these. I got to think, how am I going to meet them? Where am I? And start making a plan accordingly. When's the best time to start that plan? Pre-mission prep, doing your own study. What kind of plant can I eat? What can I write a little bit of this stuff down that I'll go into? That's the best time to But you hit the ground, follow the steps. Okay, I got to think about these and make some decisions. Get busy or say I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to spend a long time, but again, it changes in each environment. Under personal protection, clothing, shelter, and fire. Those are all 3 things we have to look at. Clothing, probably the most critical to you, especially with the aircraft you're flying. Okay, because it's your first line of defense. It is what you know you'll most likely get out of that aircraft with versus going back, trying to retrieve bags or something. But clothing is very important. I'm not going to give you the answer. You can call me, pay me a lot of money, I'll come do private lessons. I'm just kidding, I've never done that in my life, but that's a great idea. Anyway, I'm not a businessman, I work for the government. Anyway, with that first line of clothing, you got to think we're leaving Fells Field, it's beautiful. If we're staying around the area, we don't need extra clothing. You know, it's not rocket science, but if we are going to make that trip over, hey, if we're going over the Cascades, there's still snow up there, even though it's summer, it might be time for gloves and a hat inside that kit. If we're spending all our time down near the George area and those ranges, hey, I'm going to put a lot more water for this couple months that I'm working down there, working this contract, because if I go down there, I need water to shade. Makes sense? It's just taking the forethought to plan for it, be aware that it's there, and put some specialized equipment if you can. Now, don't get me wrong, I understand. I'm going to give you a whole list of cool things to bring. Who decides what you bring? That's why I'm just showing you this, because it gives you your deciding factors when you start to do your research. But I understand space is huge. In the Air Force, down to ounces. We have conferences in the Pentagon where we argue the SEER guys are in what air crew member need, but it goes down to the ounces. No, you guys are at 29 ounce on that product, and that's all. Because we start taking weight, you guys are more experts at it than I am, all the problems. In the military, the big problem is you take more weight for water, he can drop one less bomb. Or she, right? So we fight. We understand. You have to decide. Is this little kit like some guys carry? That's fine. It's your call. It's like insurance. You can buy it, and you decide, am I going to die sooner or am I going to die later? But some guys or gals just carry a little kit. Some carry a hit and run bag. It's up to you, your aircraft, what you have size. But as you change your flight profile, you need to look at these. Shelter. It would change what you need if you're flying over the desert area versus what you need up in the mountains there, or what you need in George. Clothing wise, if we went down in the tropics, what do you think your first thing would be?
Bathing suit.
Bathing suit, all our students want to do. But some kind of rain gear, right? Hey, tropics, your biggest problem is being wet all the time and all the issues. Okay, I'm going to carry Cortex. That's your only one modification. Put it in one little bag. I'm flying over the Cascades. I'm going to pack some warm weather gear. But just be aware of it on your normal profiles. Fire, everybody knows, usually needed as a survivor. Even if you don't need it, sure is fun. Even if you're not a survivor, they're fun. So, firecraft though, can't teach you here today. I would prep for it if I were you. Especially the tropical, the Arctic environments, you're going to need fire just to maintain life. Food and water. Is food really an issue for you folks, you think? Probably not in today's technology. If you're flying around Washington State, you may be grounded and rescue's not coming out because of fog or weather, whatever the limited visibility. whatever the case, but we're not talking, how long does it take for the body to really start dropping from lack of calories and food? About 3 weeks till you really, I can't stand up anymore kind of, and you can live 30 days or beyond. So, for today in a non-combat environment, your chances of something happening by then are good anyway. So I'm not saying don't get it. I'm saying, hey, research a few things in Washington. I'll tell you right now, know what cattail is, know what the berries look like, know what what a spider looks like so you don't eat it, but the rest of the insects, if you just know those three and ferns, you're going to eat in Washington State. Don't care what time of year it is. You don't need to. So, but water, however, you go down the desert outside the proving grounds there, and you got a lot of humper. They're not finding you. Your beacon's down. It only takes a little while in a day's walk, because we train our guys down there, and we take their water, and by the end of the first day, some of them they're so dehydrated, and we let them go 2.5 days without water to feel the effects. It doesn't take long out there. So in that case, yeah, I'm not worried about food, but I am going to throw a bunch of water in there. Food, if you are thinking food, there are so many cool, if you go to the health food stores, and I'm not even going to go into the type, but there are little power bars that are full of calories, protein. If you're worried, and it is helpful as a survivor, when you're working and getting things done, it motivates you. If you have a little bit to eat, throw some of that in there. The water should be your concern. And there is parts of the state where water's not available to you. So if you're flying over there, it should be, what is my answer here? A flexiplex of water, a camelback in the aircraft. There's everything from little containers up to as big as you guys know about, you want to consider carrying. Same thing, do you guys do any open ocean flying? No. Anybody here? So we won't go into that. Revolutionize there. Where are we at? Health. All I can say is basic first aid. If you get hurt out there and you got to deal with it, you got what you got to deal with. So prior education and training, some of those first aid classes, and you guys hear this all the time. Psychological health. Will to survive is the most powerful thing in the world to a human being surviving in a bad situation. You give up, your body gives up. You don't give up, you keep pressing. I give you a million stories. You just got to trust me. Look it up. Will to survive. And those that are with you. I mean, as the operator of the aircraft, as a pilot, you got some obligations. I know how it is in the military. I would think you would have the same moral obligation. That's keeping your crew, treating their physical injuries, but at the same time, getting them busy. Even if you know rescue's coming in an hour, taking control of mental health. Mental health is crucial. Especially, and that's where people think mental health is long-term. Boredom, isolation, that is true. But that mental health in that first hour is critical because it affects the decisions you make. And those decisions might be life or death till that rescue squadron shows up. Travel. Do we normally encourage you to travel if you were in an aircraft incident anywhere around here? It's not normal. Why? Because you got beacons, radios, all kinds of equipment on your aircraft. You've got the aircraft itself. You got the flight plan that hopefully they're digging up, finding your flight plan. We're flying along that. And then as far as the signal, you got at least where the aircraft went through the foliage, or the aircraft itself sitting there. Bottom line, there's too many recovery principles for you to stay put, at least for a while. Do we say not to travel? No, there's a time and a place. But realize as soon as you start to travel, which one of those environmental things starts screwing with us? Remember the terrain? You start traveling through forks. If you've never tried to walk out of the brush of forks, it's just blackberry bush. You step off and straight down. It's almost impossible to kill somebody already hurt and injured. The scree talus slopes up in the Cascades, the glaciers they got up there. Try to walk yourself off a glacier. Bottom line, it opens up. You start moving, you start opening yourself to injury, so it's safer. Is there a time and a place? Sure. You guys are smart and educated enough to know the world that as that aircraft commander, that pilot, if you said, look, the beacons are dead, we've been out here, you determine the time, nobody's been by, we don't have comms, I'm going to send 2 guys out because I have good constant awareness, I know this town or this major highway. I'm not saying don't, but realize your safest and best bet starting with is to stay put. So if you're in shock, whatever, stay put. Then, as you look at these different considerations, if you make an educated choice, a lot of people have locked themselves out. But just don't do it because you're freaking and you think there's something close. See a lot of people walk for a lot of days. I myself have never been lost for days. I might be confused for a week or 2, but never lost. Okay, signal and communication. You guys, hopefully you know all about communication if you're up there and flying today. But your electronic signals are your best bet, and they are wonderful today. They're hitting satellites. You know, it used to be line of sight. We didn't even have that on most radios. It was good if you was on the other side of the field before the tree line. But you guys know comms. Go through all your comms, know your comms. If you need extra communication devices, purchase them. It's one of those insurance things. If you purchase it, you're going to be like, dang, I never used it. But there's a lot of that stuff out there that makes our job on the rescue side so much easier. You guys know too how easy it is to get to that. So, and don't throw away phones. I mean, as far as using them, go right down the list. Make sure, I know you guys have checklists physically. Do you guys have to check beacons each time, each flight? Anyway, you know how to operate them. Make sure those are all working, but nothing wrong with it. Even though those are going, making the radio call, making the cell phone call, because there is no communication that is too much coming from the isolated person. Everybody tracking? I have been involved with a lot of rescues, not so many civil, but a lot of rescues where we hated all the communication chatter, but the one that we never had an issue with was that isolated person sending us information. Okay. Other types of flares too, got to look at your operational area. A lot of folks fly over that water and they don't have a sea marker die or something to open it up on the Pacific coastline there when Garibaldi launches their boats to go get them, or Astoria puts their Dolphin. They still fly a Dolphin? Beautiful helicopter, great crew. But there's a wide variety. Again, with all these you're picking, thinking, looking at equipment. How's it fit into my environment? What environment am I flying in? What is my threat? And then you guys are educated enough to do your own research on what signaling device is out there. Recovery, I'll boil it down this way. Get to a spot where they can land a helicopter if possible, because that's going to be much easier if they come in. They might come in with a land crew, but prep for a helicopter because that's the quickest and easiest, right? Instead of walking out. If it's a road vehicle, it don't matter. But I'm talking in isolated, most likely that helicopter, if you can find, or at least find an area near your site, so when they come, you know where it's at, can get out there. But whatever they drop to you here in Washington State, there's two principles. One will include some kind of fixed loop. You've all seen the horseshoe collar like in the video that floats, the rings, the one RRQS in a lot of cases called a foliage tree penetrator. It looks like a big silver or orange missile. It comes through the trees. There's a seat, you'll see it, there's a seat you push down, you just pull it under here, it's just a one little arm seat, and on the top there is fixed loops or things that they want you to put on. Normally there will be a guy comes down, he puts you on, gets you up. But if a helicopter or any other device comes for you, they're going to lower one of two things, some kind of basket or some kind of fixed loop. If it's a fixed loop, you get into it. If it's a rope, you take it, you tie a big overhand knot, 6 foot length, and you put it with the knot end facing towards your face. Everybody tracking? Not the loop end with the rope going there. You will fall out that way. If you make, and they all have them, some kind of fixed loop, and you get it around under here, you're going up. Everybody tracking? So whatever device, if it's not a basket, find a fixed loop. If it's on there somewhere, get it under you, and you'll be gone. If it's a basket, get in. Grab yourself, and that's it. You won't the whole ride, but that's the principle. Get in the basket, don't help. The only thing you have to watch for is what? Anybody know? The cable. Again, usually, especially if you're in a basket, you're ambulatory, or that's all they had. But if you do see the cable wrapped around somewhere, let them know, or clear it if you're alone. But getting in a basket, you don't have to touch anything. They are designed to lift you up from there. The problem with if you reach the basket, well, I'm not going to show you here. I got one bent there, had a student freak out. When I hold the edge of the basket, or the bottom, the edge, when they pull you up to that aircraft, what happens? You got some skinny little 18-year-old weighs like 100 pounds, flight engineer. He's got to get that thing rocking and then slide you in. Well, your fingers bust real bad. And if you got them on the bottom, what happens? What's the deck of a Huey look like, sir, or feel like?
It's rough.
It's sandy. That's what it is. Well, when they screwed you across there, if you're holding on for dear life, woo! I've seen it. It's ugly. So everybody tracking? Aircraft comes to you, have a place they can land. That's the best. If not, you're on a cliff. They drop anything. If it's some kind of rope, floaty device, whatever, it's a fixed loop. Get it around, put the knot here. If it's a basket, get in and try your best to keep your hands in. If you are going to grab, just do it while you're up. Watch the helicopter. Get them back in before you get to the helo. Okay. Those 6 needs, you've looked at all your environment. I just asked as educated people, look at the threats in each one of those. The wind, do I need out of the wind? The sun, the snow, the rain, what do I got to get out of? What kind of clothing requirements? And then you determine, hey, maybe this is a weird trip. We're going all the way over. I'm going to throw an extra day bag with some survival gear in it, if it's not your normal. Right? But survival kits. Sure most of you got them. Consideration. Space is probably your number one, am I correct on that? Other than that it works and all that. I know ours is we're constantly fighting for space. Smaller, the better. Right? However, if you need it, and you made it so small that you don't have it, life sucks. You were stupid. You made a bad choice. I'm sorry. And then press on. You'll still survive. Remember that, Will? That's your, anybody follow Dave Ramsey? He calls that stupid tax when you make bad decisions like financing all of your stuff as your kids do. He calls it stupid tax. But as small as possible, if that meets your requirement. Multi-use items, they got the old US knife, but best example, a Leatherman, right? Everybody know what a Leatherman is? All kinds of tools. There's magnifying glass for starting fires. There's files. How many times do you think survivors actually use that stuff? Not a lot, but I don't bring that up because it's a great tool and I still want it in every kit. You don't have to use all of it. If the 1 or 2 things you need, tool is there. If you needed that screwdriver to get that radio out and it's there, that's the whole goal. But that's what I mean by multi-purpose items. And a lot of them you can make multi-purpose. Remember I said high protein, high fats, that kind of stuff? I can buy a can of Spam. And that's a multi-purpose item. One, it's small, it's condensed, it's got foods in it, but what else did it have? Yeah, if you've never been out there overnight or if you for a while, I can open that up, eat the meat. Now I got a can. I can boil water. I can melt snow. I can use it to feed the injured folks. I can take the top off that's gold, rub it up and down on my leg and just reflect it on the sun. And you guys see it all the time while you're up there flying. Our improvised ones, we go all over Colville. I mean, 20, 30 miles, nothing big for an improvised mirror. So multi-purpose. Just think, get creative. Environmental. Enough said, right? You got to pack stuff that match up what your environmental threat's going to be. And special needs of the crew. What might those be? You guys are crew. You can tell me better than I can tell you.
Medications.
If medication is a key. If there's people on board that need medication, diabetes, whatever the case, if there's medication that they do without, you're really sorely mistaken if that's not in one of your basic survival kits. And doesn't check to hurt with Pat, I won't even get there, but if you're on the ground and you require medication, it's a good thing to make sure you've got some extra. And you know, most doctors will give you an extra script just for that. Not all of them, but a lot of them will. If you tell them it's for a survival kit, unless you've got a habit of going in there to get your crack or whatever. Then they're not going to give you. Sorry. Okay, those are some ideas, common things we carry. But the key is you should be looking at is which areas you're flying over, because a lot of that can change real quick. If you're down in the desert doing ops down there, contract, the Army's running around all the time, I'm carrying a lot of water. There's going to be a lot of flexi pass of water. I'm going up into the training area up north in the winter or anywhere it's cold. I'm going to get me one of those space blankets, or even the space blankets that you can pull up over you. What a great shelter. I mean, you're not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be staying in them nice ones they got at the Davenport Hotel, those cushions, but you're going to survive in most cases. I've slept in them at well below zero with just my uniform and a jacket on. Everybody know what I'm talking about? The foil, they always had the emergency blankets, which are great, reflective signal. Tropics, they do good. Desert, they do good, the sun. But if you're doing the colder environments, just wrap it in that blanket. But as a minimum, like the one that's shaped like a sleeping bag, as a shelter, great, small. But again, you got to look where you're flying. Don't carry those if you're down over the desert. It's warm all summer. Why carry a hat and gloves and all that extra crap in your plane? It's like my boat. I taught this to my wife now. Whatever mission we go out on the boat, we got a checklist. And we just went out for 2 days, canceled because of the smoke. And we're going to be out. And I had to go and pack everything for what if? I created a monster. Your priorities on that are driven by what?
Environment.
The environment. What threat? Go through that. Okay, and the last thing I got are 2 ways to pack these things. Either multiple locations, so if something happens to the aircraft, if you can put it in one bag or one kit, but if you lose that, you're done, correct? Some folks spread it, little packets of the same thing or different items throughout the aircraft in their pockets. They carry their knife, maybe a weapon, whatever the case, but it's spread across. So if something happens, you don't lose it all. Pros and cons to both. What we decide in the Air Force is our guys wear vests because it's easy. They can get around. They hang it in their locker. They grab that vest, and it's got all the survival equipment. They know they get on board. It's fairly comfortable. It's got all the key components. And then what we have, like I work for a Joint Special Operations organization, and they had those vests, but then to determine, because some of them go on a mountain operation where it's going to be freezing overnight, some go in town, then we would have just a little hit and run bag that they could literally tie on the back of their vest. Whole weather gear, jacket, and a compression set. So it's yours, how much you put. This is all your insurance policy. I just want to give you the things to think about, and then you got to make the decisions from there. The last thing, I don't know where you guys, how much you do. With each aircrew member we have before they fly any mission, peacetime or wartime, well, it is mandatory for wartime. They develop we call it an evasion plan of action, but it's an emergency plan of action, where they write down a lot of critical, the bottom line is it is meant, and it's done by their SEER guy. Their SEER guy, each assigned to a unit, has them fill these out, and he works with them when they go into a new theater to help them update their plans. But if they ever go down, the first thing we did in that personnel rescue center for the entire theater, as soon as they go down, I am requesting, and we've already got it in our database because they're required, I pull up that young captain's EPA and it tells me, here's what training he's had, here's what equipment he has, here's what he says his intentions are. Now, will those intentions be 100% on? No, but it gives you a mindset to this guy or gal and what the plan is. So, it doesn't have to be in depth. You know, if you just jotted these things down, or whatever is important to you that you think rescue should know, because just that small list there changes things for me in the rescue center a lot. And I could explain it, but those of you that have worked with rescue personnel know why this information is beneficial to you. What you do with this EPA, it changes obviously what we do in the military. I don't know, Roger. I don't know. Do you file it with a flight plan? I don't think so, but if you just left it with somebody that knows, kind of like when you go camping, Roger, you leave it with your wife, you know, or it's the company you're flying with, or if there's people at the hangar that'll, I don't know your world, but leave it somewhere that when you go down and the RQS gets called and the SEER guys collecting all this, or the sheriff, whoever, they'll be able to find it fairly quickly. Does that make sense? And it does help out tremendously. This is up to you, changes. It's a whole different, we have a whole 2-hour problem solving. But what do you think your intentions are? If you fly a normal area, hey, I go down, I plan on walking out to the road if I'm physically capable because of your area. Anything wrong with that plan? Not if you've looked at it and you're educated, you're pilots, and said it makes sense. Well, it's handy for us to know. We go by, we buzz the site, nothing. So we're bringing in teams to do extrication because that's what I got to assume, correct? So it takes me some time to get an extrication team going, the equipment. We get there. So there's no madness to it. It's just you, best you can bet, this is what I plan on doing. Does it mean you can't change that or you have to stick to it? Absolutely not. Just gives us an indication of what your plans are. And what's it help do in a panic situation? Same thing as you do in pilot training. Convincing, right? You've got a plan. I've got a plan. I'm going to follow this unless I convince myself otherwise because I'm scared to death right now. And people know what it is. So everybody likes to have a plan when there's an emergency. It's when people run around with their heads cut off. Okay, huge. Sorry, I don't know how long it went. Hopefully not too long. Questions? Comments? Yes, sir.
I got a question, you know, if you're lucky enough to get rescued by a basket, you know, and helicopters bring you up, I've seen news clips where those baskets are rotating nearly as fast as the rotor system on the helicopter. What do you do to avoid getting into one of those rotation situations?
There is nothing you can do as a passenger while you're in there. I mean, you know, you can talk about putting your arms out. When we parachute for free fall, we put our arms out. It won't stay. There's nothing physically you can do.
What starts that then? I mean, is that just vortex that starts?
Close your eyes so you don't get dizzy.
Yeah, I mean, there's 100 things. This gentleman could probably, did you have any waste on yours? The key is, though, it can be a lot of things. Your rescue technician is a key portion of that. Like we go through training. When I get you in, I need to maintain physical control, watch that cable, and as you start the initial one, that's where most of the problem comes. Because that aircraft cannot be directly overhead. You know, that's very hard for that pilot. He's off one side or another. So when they start that original lift, that's where your rescue technician has to be there to prevent the swing. And then if he lets you go, a lot of them will use ropes for the oscillation itself. It can just be the winds. It can be you moved. I had a good friend, a classmate, that died on one of those. He was in Korea on an exercise, and it wasn't the basket, it was the penetrator, the little thing they drop down. It was from Vietnam, but there's a little seat, you put that under you, and then you put the fixed loop. Him and an A-10 driver got on that and lifted 70 feet, and it was just one of those. They started oscillating, everything looked fine at that point, and the cable got a little kink, and when it hit the winch up top, it snapped it, dropped them. Very rare though. Those are extremely safe versus laying there on the side of the mountain. But as an individual, nothing. If you're on any device like a fixed loop, there is something you can do. Drag your feet. Stay in contact with the ground until that line's straight over. Because what you don't want to do is get that big lift and start doing that. If you drag your feet as you go up, that will help. Best you can do.
That's the question on like fire starters. What I have is I use cotton balls and Vaseline. Is there anything that you like better than that? That seems to work pretty good.
As far as cheap, I carried it for years because I was teaching it and I went through every student, you know, I showed them. As far as cheap and effective, you got cotton, you got the Vaseline for your petroleum, great. I mean, why go? There are better high-speed little tablets and stuff that you can buy from Cabela's and all. But if you don't want to spend the money, cotton balls, Vaseline. The strikers are the best things ever. Everybody know what I'm talking about? A striker, you see them at all the fairs. The guy's there, puts them in deer horns, and bottom line, it's not magnesium. People get it wrong. They call them magnesium bars because one of them has magnesium with the striker on the edge. Magnesium, just take that, break it off, throw it away. That's stupid. But the strikers are great. For years, well, still, when I go to the woods, I have one that's on a piece of paracord, and just like my dog tags, I wear that around my neck. Because no matter what, as long as that stays on, I can lose all my clothes. I can get something to strike it with and start a fire. So that's what I'd recommend. But cotton ball and Vaseline works fine. And make sure you test it. Depends what you put through there. There's some stuff that don't burn. I grabbed one of those hand loads as I was on my way to the woods, showed my students, hey, check this out, this is great. Yeah, it doesn't burn, Sergeant Hubbard. My bad. So make sure you did cotton, that load. Anything else? Yes, sir.
You know, probably the best thing to do is have some kind of a satellite communication so that being prepared for this is important, but getting rescued is more important. I have a spot, which I typically leave up on the panel on the airplane, and I just thought, you know, I ought to clip that thing to myself somewhere, so at least if I get out of the airplane, I'll have it with me. And, you know, that thing's satellite based, and there's a variety of those.
Yeah, I have an inReach, and I have a carabiner, and I put that to me, because that's one thing, when you leave that airplane's burning, and all your survival gear is in the airplane, you got what you got.
Right.
You know, and there's some of the guys, real advocates, military with a survival vest. I know guys that go in the backcountry Idaho, and I mean, they were like, they got everything on them.
But there are a lot of those really nice devices, and you bet if it's satellite, you're touching us quicker than anything.
And don't count on your ELT.
Yeah, I don't count on anything until I see or talk to rescue.
So
And even when I talk to them, okay, I know they know I'm out here. Remember that list I showed? Report, that is the most important. If you don't report, we ain't looking. And it is up to you to make sure. How do you do that? Putting the signals out, if none of your electronics. But there are so many good electronic devices that are smaller and cheap now that are well worth the investment. Anything else? Questions? Issues, concerns?
Just a comment. Pre-COVID, we had an air traffic controller come and present, and I remember him talking about how they like when you're VFR flight following. They like when you file IFR. You're always talking to somebody. And so maybe this starts with being on the radio with somebody versus not. And so I think if we're VFR flight following, there's a lot more options. You can quickly call for help as you're... Anyway, just thinking about how to plan ahead and just stay in communication the whole flight if that's possible.
Yeah. And our guys, I can't speak to that because our guys have that all in it's SOPs that these are their procedures. But we do everything now with our guys is all satellite. They have radios that are satellite radios. They used to just have over the horizon, but now they've all got satellite encrypted. We can text at a classified level. It's pretty cool stuff.
Can anybody address, if you've got ADS-B on your airplane, it's my understanding anyhow, that you reported missing, that ATC could call that up and track it for wherever the last location where they had contact
Yes.
with it. Now, I don't think that takes you all the way to the ground.
Actually, FlightAware will do that. You can follow the plane on FlightAware active. All you gotta do is put the N number in and.
Mine don't always show up.
Pardon?
I've tried that with my airplane and they don't, all flights don't show
Yeah,
up.
my plane just went to Amarillo, Texas and back. And I followed him almost the whole way, and he would disappear when he got down in a canyon like between Missoula and Superior. I lost him, I knew he was going into Superior, but it would pop up and say, first seen in Enos, Montana. Well, it was descending into DeVille, or climbing out of Dillon, Montana, and that's where it picked him up. So you can actually actively watch altitude, speed, get a time frame on when it's gonna be there, all on FlightAware now.
Tom, well, that's on FlightAware, and then there's this other one that's.
Flight Radar 24.
Yeah.
Yeah, Flight Radar 24 is ADS-B out information. FlightAware, I believe, is only IFR flight plans. So it depends on how you file, because I think how you file determines how quickly or if they'll start looking for you. So,
How many airplanes in here have the new ADS-B, the Pearl, was it 409?
So that's the ELC.
that's ELT.
I didn't have that.
Yeah, we do.
Don't count under ELC.
Yeah, if you don't have that, spend money to get it.
It is critical though. I can tell you from the operational side, we worked with some of the civil SAR, civilian as well as downrange, and the report is on you. Sometimes we'll get lucky and get, a witness who calls or all the other, but if you're truly isolated, hey, you got a reporter, there's no function. And then our next step is to locate. And he's awesome, helped us tremendously with locate. And don't get frustrated, because you gotta think, all these different law enforcement, the difference with my search and rescue that we do in wartime is once that happens, we got carte blanche. I mean, we got people that approve. But here it turns jurisdictional, it turns memorandum of agreement between Department of Wildlife, between who's gonna do it. So even if it's a beautiful day, you've done everything right, you've calmed, and there ain't nothing showing up, don't be shocked. It could be the sheriff's department, local sheriff's department trying to run it. It takes a while, especially in civil SAR. They are getting better.
I want to backtrack a bit on the ADS-B comment, which certainly is one of the great safety enhancements. I'm curious if there's an answer to the question, like when I'm on VFR flight following, and I'm like 20 miles away from, say, Shoshone and Kellogg, and I go to the local frequency, 122.9 I think it is, I wonder if the controllers, if they keep my aircraft, if they keep tracking it all the way through after they've turned me over to advisory. I wonder what, that's an ATC question, but does anybody have an idea whether they keep monitoring anyway, even they're.
You would do the 1200 under squawk at that point, right?
Sure, but with the ADS-B, they have my call sign, they have my airspeed, heading, all that.
I would guess that it has to do with are you closing the VFR flight plan or are you continuing on? If you don't close it, then they're going to expect a call. If they don't get a call within so many minutes, then they'll start.
On a flight plan and
Right.
for a flight.
Well, that's true. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more flight plan, but it's good. That's an ATC question. Yeah.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
The penetrator is a good piece of equipment for you to like go down to the mountains and a lot of thick brush. I mean, that's what you're doing. And when they come in to get you, it's probably the best equipment to be picked up. You can take two people at one time. We did it over in Vietnam in 1965, 66. And we would drag guys through the palm trees and everything. They're shooting at you like crazy. But we never had any problem with it oscillating or anything. It might hang behind, but you can get people out that are even hurt. You take your belt off, strap it around them, and then they hold on. And like I say, you can take two out of there. But I mean, you can drag it through tree brushes and everything to get them.
It is a great device. The reason it was made, if you go down up north here, like we pick instructors and students up with them all the time because they are very safe. But if you're up north, out in that temperate forest and you can't get to a clear cut, that's when they bring in the penetrator because it just looks like a bullet and it drops. It was designed for Vietnam, Southeast Asia to go through the 3 layers of penetrating canopy. So yeah, if you're up here and you're hiking and the helicopter comes overhead, you can bet it's probably that penetrator. It's going to drop down. There's a seat, grab a piece of metal, pull it out, strap, put it around under you. Great device. And if it's our guys, if you see the green bird over, it'll be that if you're under trees. They'll still try to land send somebody to you, but if they got to pick you up, it'll be that if you're under trees. It'll be a basket if you're out somewhere else.
Well, the Jolly Green Giant at that particular time, they used it when they first came out.
Yep.
And they saved a lot of lives. We used it in the movies over there. Well, we used everything, but great.
With the exception of the rescue squadron with the Hueys, does anybody else in Washington have any kind of FLIR infrared for nighttime rescue?
Now, I don't know how much, a lot of the police departments, the police force and their helicopters have now mounted FLIR type devices, variety of FLIR. But yeah, a lot of law enforcement has them. I don't know about in Washington specifically designated for SAR, for search and rescue. I mean, our helicopter got it. Ours got thermal, it's got everything. So if we're over there looking, we see it. And that crew's very proficient. A lot of crews aren't proficient on search and rescue. They're not sure what speed to fly because they've never tried to look over a forest. Our guys are up there every week searching for students that are supposed to be sneaky peeking as part of their training, and law students every week. And so they get very proficient.
Yeah, you have night vision goggles too on all
Oh,
birds, yeah.
In California, they're using them for fighting at night because they're so strong during the day and then they go down at night. They okayed them to use the goggles at night to draw just the helicopter.
Yeah.
It's quite effective.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to be flying on dogs in this smoke, can you
Well, you
imagine?
don't get to do that, but
Anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, sir, you had yours up.
CAP's had a lot of fines lately with cell phone forensics.
Did you say CAP? Civil Air Patrol? Yeah.
Has a unit that's dedicated to cell phone forensics, so when the FRCC starts a mission, and it doesn't matter whether you're an airplane or a jeep or you're backpacking, assuming you don't have an emergency patron or something like that, you don't need to be using the phone. If the phone is on and it's hitting or has hit any towers, they can trace it. But it's kind of like the flight phone, because the first thing they'll do, number one, somebody has to know you're missing first, so they can contact people, and then that person can get your phone number and your cell phone carrier, and they can pull it up. And it was just like a radar clock. A lot of those lately have gone right to the scene. The only time that you lose it is when you get down in the range, is of course after you're on the ground. Well, hopefully the last plot is close to your final destination.
Yeah, and that's why I brought up cell phone is revolutionized. I mean, the tracking capability, and they just change. Absolutely. Cell phones are a great tool. Know how to use them, especially you guys that have FAA requirements and people jump in.
The thing is, they're gonna make coffee to you, as long as they're turned on, and they can hit towers somewhere, they can trace it.
Yeah.
As long as there's somebody that knows you're missing and can give you the phone number of the carrier.
And a lot of times it'll tell you don't even have coverage, but if you dial 911, it will get you coverage and get you that voice. Or just because it shows you don't have coverage doesn't mean you can't track, like you're saying. So yeah, outstanding tools.
In Wyoming, we have three FLIR airplanes.
I'm sorry.
Wyoming has 3 FLIR airplanes.
There you go. That's Civil Air Patrol that has.
It's kind of far away from here, but they did borrow them for mission down in southeastern Iowa. Whether or not we see one up there, and then mention FLIR, whether or not we see one up there, I don't know. It is a capability.
Our guys are pretty quick. They do a lot of training, so when a rescue mission comes up, our birds, and we got 3 of them out there. There's already one on standby for rescue. So if you want FLIRs around here,
That's good.
yeah. Anything else? If not, pleasure meeting all you folks and fly safe out there. Appreciate your time.
Just some closing things there too. Thanks for coming tonight, and most people I see tonight are pretty regulars, but Colonel Kirkwood and his family, we're sure glad to have you come over here to Washington, coming a long trip from the country of Idaho to the state of Washington. So
Thank you.
thanks so much.
I've had to use these skills when I put my leg back when I got stuck in my Jeep in the middle of nowhere. And a couple times I had to use one. So it's not just flying, but he's coming really handy.
And he's an in-reach medium, in-reach for backpacking and fishing and checking in. I have a program that you get this one and be late. If you get it again and get really late, your wife happy when I'm out, adventure.
I forgot also, a lot of the GPSs now, magnificent capabilities. I mean, both for navigating on the ground as well as for communication. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah.
Not to replace beacons and all that, but for a survival kit on the ground.
Most of the rescues up at Mount Spokane have all been related to cell phones. People do, and they get one tower, and worst cases, they get this area of probability and say, okay, this guy is within this position here within 500 yards, and it's amazing, because it used to be you go out there and, okay, they're missing, let's go look for tracks.
Right.
And you got a state park up there that's a few thousand acres, and spend all night looking for somebody.
John, you mentioned the 406.
Yeah.
I have the 406 just circumstantially, but I know it was kicked around a couple of years ago that it would be a requirement to upgrade the 406. I don't think that's true today. It's not been a actually talking to red.
If it's not, it probably should be.
Well, I just want to share a different perspective because they got those in-reach things on Brothers there, got a Costco, Ron said, we pick one up now for cheap. I can't imagine spending all that money for a 406 if you don't require to have one. You still got a function of 121. Just go pick up the in-reach for $50 or whatever it is. You call yourself even more effective. But something to think about.
Actually, I can read it.
With the